Hello everyone, Burb here. A fan favorite character in Aston, Machan, is being released tomorrow, and I'd like to give her a bit of time to go and shine. I'll be going over everything today, from her aptitudes to her unique to her champions meeting viability, in hopes of creating a reference guide that's good for now and for forever. This is a way tuned up guide to Aston Machan. Before we begin, if you're looking to pull this character, I always say to pull for the Umas that you enjoy, and I know a lot of people love her dearly. Do note that she is primarily locked to sprints and mile tracks more than most other Umas, however, because of the distance G aptitude in mediums and longs. It's very difficult for her to exist in those distances due to the difficulty of increasing an aptitude by that much. In addition, she's primarily set for the sprint tracks, which are the rarest of all the competitive formats of Champions Meeting and League of Heroes. So she isn't the most applicable Uma, but what she does give you is a very comfy frontrunner with a lot of the skills that you're looking for. She's almost on the level of V Bourbon, perhaps slightly behind it, but she just gives you so many good skills that you're looking for on fronts that she's very comfy when those shorter tracks come around. Like I said, she's very good on the sprint tracks, and she's an option on the mile track. So she does have applicability. And like I said, if you enjoy the character, man, just pull for the characters that you enjoy as long as it's within reason on your pull plan. To start, like I said, her aptitudes are a little bit tough. She has medium, long, and dirt aptitude G, which means she's primarily locked to the turf sprints and the turf miles. I'd say she's primarily a front runner due to the skills that she gives you, but you can run her in the pace chaser position because she does have pace aptitude A. I would say side games intend her to be a turf sprinter in the front runner position with a couple of options in the mile and pace for you to go and mess around with. She's a 20% speed Uma, which is very good in Grand Live. It pretty much lets you drop that third speed card more often than not. And because she gives you the skill that Mahono Bourbon Wit gives you, it's a pure utility card for you to go and run whatever card that you wish. You can run a third speed for more consistency. You can run more Wit to go and try to pump that Wit stat above the other frontrunners. Or you can go and run something like a power card to generate power because the 0% power Uma has trouble generating power. Or you can even go and fish for skills like the Twin Turbo Guts card to go and both amplify your guts stat because you're running a guts card with a 10% guts, or just to go and run a card purely for the skill. The world is pretty much your oyster in it. You can run whatever you want, and honestly, it probably will work for Aston Machan, particularly because she's primarily meant for the shorter distances, so this slot is mostly open anyways. Her unique silent letter says, get it? Okay, her unique says increase ability to break out of the pack with a strong desire to linger in fans' hearts when pressured towards the front with 400 meter or less remaining. There's a couple of conditions. The first two are pretty easy. The last one we're going to have to explain a little bit. First of all, 400 meters or less is the 400 meter mark or less in the race. If you can satisfy all the conditions, it will proc immediately, but it can late proc if you either pass into position or you satisfy the last one a little bit late, which we will talk about. You do need to be second place or better. This does work in first place, but you have to either be second place. So if you pass from third into second, it could cause this to late proc, or be in the front. Again, it does work in first place, which is rather rare for a lot of uniques. The last condition is where it gets a little bit complicated. Overtake target time greater than or equal to 1 is the complementary to is overtake. When an Uma is overtakes, its overtake target procs overtake target time. It is technically a counter that counts for a full second, but realistically it's pretty close to near procking. Basically, the is overtake condition is a field of view condition, so you do need to have an Uma have you in the field of view, which will happen quite a lot as a front runner, and they need to be traveling faster than you and be projected to pass you within the next 15 seconds. What I think the way this game does it is it basically just projects your final position on the track 15 seconds ahead, and if they are in front of you, it will immediately go and start that counter. So realistically, as a front runner, your final speed is lower than most of the other Umas. If there's anyone that hits more, like better than you, you will probably proc this pretty consistently fast. If not, it kind of becomes a pure pass protect unique. When you are at max speed, there is usually a backliner that will go and pass you within the 15 seconds, which means that you will go and proc that additional velocity to go and help you ward and fend them off. This is a weaker speed unique. If you just only consider the speed, it is a hybrid unique with some acceleration. It is only 1.25 distance units at 0.25 rather than the standard base rate of 0.35 for 5 seconds, but the additional acceleration and how often you actually will proc it in the excel zone gives it a lot of extra value, to the point that on the shorter tracks it is very, very, very good. Do note that it does not go and discern late race from mid race, which means that on the 1,000 meter tracks where the spurt happens at the 333 mark, it will proc prior to that spurt, which means you will speed carry over a 0.25 with some acceleration leak of a 0.3 excel. So if that sounds powerful, it's basically Christmas Oguri. That's why it sounds familiar. It's very powerful on the 1,000 meters if literally anyone goes and procs speed carryover and you don't, which will happen quite often. So primarily set for the 1,000 meter marks. If you are at 1,200 meters, it is basically a perfect proc acceleration at best. If you're at the 1,400 meters, it is delayed by 67 meters. And if it's anything longer than that, it gets delayed too far where you're not really getting much excel at it. So it's not really a true excel you should be relying on at that point. So this is why I say that she's primarily set to be a sprinter, because really 1,400 meters or less is where the acceleration component actually goes and gives you a bit. And then of course at the 1,200 meters and the 1,000 meters, it's actually really significant and gives you a good chance of actually going and winning. Her inherit is something to possibly look for at the 1,000 meter tracks, but it's not necessarily the most important frontrunner unique. It is shredded into a 0.05 target speed because it is a hybrid unique, but it is a 0.1 acceleration that doesn't require any additional hoops to go through. So for that 200 base skill points, it's not the worst option on the sprint tracks, but it's not something you would actively seek out. Although frontrunners don't really have that many options in terms of inherit excels, so maybe this is a secondary one you do behind angling and scheming, or on those straight tracks, the 1,000 meter straight tracks where angling and scheming simply doesn't work. You're probably going and putting together any sort of excels that you can grab, and that 0.1 excel being guaranteed just from your position and most likely someone traveling faster than you is enough to put it ahead of most of the other excels in the game as your base excel. You will need something besides this to go and win, because 0.1 excel is simply not enough. For her career and events, it's a sprint career. It's like ridiculously easy. You do need to win the sprinter stakes twice, but like you should be pressing the speed button in sprint and miles, so I think you'll be perfectly fine on that. Otherwise, her secret events are to go and beat Vodka and to go beat Daiwa Scarlet. So I think you will probably have to add 1 or 2 races from Daiwa Scarlet's or Vodka's career in order to hit the threshold of 4, but I do believe they definitely go and do the HJF and the Oka show, so that's at least 2. Maybe they do the Phillies Review. No, it's a sprint track. I think it's really you have to add 1 or 2 additional races. Someone in the comments knows exactly which races that those do, but I think it is additional races, and the Guts and Speed Guts 20 and Power Wit 20, it probably is not 100% worth it for Grand Live, but again, those sprint tracks, you're probably getting enough taps anyways, so it's something to take into account. Shifting gear for the miles and productive plan for miles, both are great skills. Shifting gears is just mid-race, which is great on a front runner or a pace chaser. Productive plan is Mile Maven, which is one of the best skills in the game for front runners and for pace chasers alike, because early race is what establishes your position, and so it's the whole reason why people are running Taiki speed. It's just such a good skill in the early race that puts you ahead of everybody else. Her base events, though, she is a charming Uma, so it is better than most of it. The only one that's better than that is Fast Learner. Charming early will go and increase your bonds, which in Grand Live is ridiculous because that goes and gives you more tokens in the long runs from the earlier friendship trainings. Her actual character events are Light as a Feather, which is just some bonus skill points because she has that skill, as well as Front Runner Savvy on a top-down option. So pretty simple events for her, pretty simple career for her that shouldn't be much of a issue for anybody. This is where things get good. Her innate skills are incredible. Wet conditions is obviously good when it's wet. Sprint corners is very good when it is on a sprint, and honestly the sprints are the hardest things to loop because we're not looping for sprints because they aren't happening very often. This is why like Bamboo Memory having sprint corners and straights is incredible, and especially on a front runner where mid race is super important, and most of the sprint tracks have some sort of corner that you are generally trying to do and get some get some lengths over people. Sprint corners is a much better skill than it lets on to be in those situations. She has groundwork, and that should be enough to, if you are a front runner player, yep, that's the skill you want. So groundwork's incredible, requires 3 greens. It's a primary skill for front runners. It's near required at this point. It's what people are looping, and she just simply has it every single time. It's early race acceleration combined with stuff like productive plan and other speed skills is what establishes you in first place in the early part of the race, especially with it being shorter tracks and where there's less chance and less opportunities to go and pass people to get to that final corner to go and win the race. Her golden 8 skills are in high spirits, which is a incredible sprint late race possibility of speed carryover. So it has a higher chance of speed carryover. It is a good mid-race skill for sprint tracks in particular. And the other big one is taking the lead. So this combined with groundwork is a 0.6 excel in the early race, which is basically the bread and butter for all front runners. You do not have to go and search for your primary early race skills. So your lupas can be basically all the other stuff like DDPP and mid-race. This is a very, very, very comfy front runner for you to build. For her CM viability, like I said, I didn't put her in the CM7 in the Champions Meeting 18 guides, but she is in any Champions Meeting that you can go and bring her aptitude up. She is an easier front runner than most of the other front runners in the game, with the exception of possibly V Bourbon. Taking the lead plus groundwork is enough that it lowers the variance of all of your runs, which means you can go and make her better because you have more viable runs than pretty much every other front runner in the game. There's less stuff that you are simply searching for. For Champions Meeting 18, which is the mile track that is coming up, her unique does proc a little bit late. It is in like Bark Roll Blessings timing. It always will be that. And most likely you will have somebody procking it near instantly in the situations where you are winning. And it will give you a tiny bit of excel, but honestly, it's kind of just there as a 0.25 speed skill. In CM21, this is where things get good. It is possibly a perfect proc excel. It could technically proc late, like I said, but most likely it will proc immediately and give you some level of excel to go and combine with Victoria Por Plancha on this particular track. So CM21, she will be incredibly good because she just has an additional, a 0.3 when everyone's kind of struggling to go and grab excels, because this is actually a straight map for front runners. After that, she has Champions Meeting 29, 41, League of Heroes 2, 6, 9, and 14, with special shout out to League of Heroes 6 being a 1,000 meter track, which means she is going to be incredible on that one. But those other sprint tracks, like I said, even up to JP, there isn't many sprint races that we're doing inside this competitive format. So she is an option on the mile tracks when those come around, but do note that her CM viability is limited due to her aptitudes and due to the fact she's primarily meant to be a sprinter. So with that out of the way, her affinity is with a couple of front runners, but it's honestly not very good. It's 24, I think, with Bourbon and 23 with Red Maru and I guess Summer Maru and Curran Chan, but after that it kind of falls off of a cliff. These sprinters are very tough with getting along with most of the other Umas on the cast because they just simply didn't share many races and don't share many categories with them. For looping and for parent building, it seems really good because you have a 1 in 4 chance of a sprint. However, due to her affinity, her base affinity, and even more than that, because she has distance medium G and dirt G, you're not going to be able to race match a lot, which makes it very difficult for you to go and build parents with high affinities in order to go and pass this on with any number of skills. So it's not the most recommended for looping. This is why I was not really focusing on her as a parent too much. In conclusion, she simply is a very good sprinter with an option of mile. She's a fan favorite character, so if you really enjoy the character, feel free to pull for her. She's not going to be top of the meta. She is a very good option, like I said, on CM21, and when those 1,000 meter tracks happen later on in the game. But honestly, those are few and far between. So again, don't pull for meta. Pull for characters that you enjoy. She can hold her own as well as holding herself. And with that out of the way, take care, everyone. Burb out.
ちゃんです。よろしくね。